mail chain for this round? And also, do you guys want to do speech docs or just evidence?
Sorry, what'd you say? It cut out on my end.
Oh yeah, my bad. Are you guys good with setting up the email chain or do you want us to set it up? Because y'all
Um,
first.
I guess we can set up the email chain. We can do like if everyone could just type their emails in the chat, and then Ranesh, can you set up the chain?
Yeah, I got that. All right, let me set that up.
And then are you guys good with evidence chains or speech docs?
Um, uh,
Because we're fine with
We're
both.
doing like
I think
evidence chain.
speech
Oh,
docs might be better.
Yeah, I think so as well. Just
Yeah,
so
just
that in
because
case
it
we get
speeds
too
up
bad.
evidence sharing process. I guess we
Yeah.
can do speech docs maybe for case, and then for rebuttal, we can do evidence sharing if you guys want evidence sharing. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that sounds better. Okay.
uh, uh
okay. So we're sending files for case, and then for rebuttal, we're not.
yeah, we will
Okay,
send.
cool.
All right, okay, perfect.
And we're still getting set up with still getting the doc set up right now. So if you could give me a second for that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Um, all right, the email is sent. It just says good luck.
And then I'll reply with the docs whenever we're ready to start round.
Yeah. Wait, actually, wait here.
For docs, do you prefer Word, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, please.
Okay. I was wondering for your case doc if you could also just send it as a PDF or a Google Doc because Word doesn't really work that well on my laptop.
Okay, I can send it as a PDF.
Okay. I'm going to send the neg case if everyone is ready. Ranesh, are you good? Since you're reading case.
Yeah, I'm good.
Let me send it out.
Really
Wait, just to
quickly, can we get the
clarify,
speaker order?
Oh, yeah. So, my name's Ranesh Samthar for Team USA Pennsylvania. Uh, I'm the first speaker. We're going first, and we're on the neg side.
Sarah Chan from San Marino. We're going second and we're on the aft side.
I'm Shingi Lee. I go by Lily. I'm also Team USA California, San Marino, and we're going second on the aft side.
I sent everything in the chat for reference, by the way.
All right, awesome.
By the way, just to clarify, you said it was okay if I like set apart a document and then just like paste all the stuff there. Is that okay?
Like a Google Doc?
Yeah, like a link, and then I'll just like put
Yeah,
the
that
words
works. That
there.
works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, I got your guys' case, so if everyone else has.
Awesome. All right, perfect. Okay, so in that case, time will just start on my first word. We negate contention one is pandemics. A pandemic will happen by 2028 or sooner, according to experts. Hollow 23. 38% of professionals believe the next pandemic may be less than 5 years away. In the last 20 years, we've seen SARS, H1N1, COVID, average of every 6.5 years. No natural reason why it couldn't be less than 5. Thought could range from politics, profession, within healthcare, or an optimistic view. It wasn't medicine that went wrong. Public health didn't succeed. They might be professionals who think we've learned. Trump's EOs cut ties with the WHO, resulting in weak responses to future pandemics. EME25 explains Trump issued an EO saying the U.S. will withdraw funding to the WHO. The U.S. is by far the largest donor to the WHO. Loss of funding will severely hamper the WHO's operations, leave a critical gap in their ability to respond effectively to outbreaks. Trump directed CDC to cease communications with the WHO, which hinders responses to emerging disease outbreaks. The CDC support WHO's global disease surveillance and control efforts and resources to aid in emergency health responses. And Trump's EOs created Doge. White House 25. President EO implement Doge. Doge cut NIH funding. Kaiser 25 furthers a mandate from Doge for NIH to cut contract spending 35%. Various NIH-wide restrictions have slowed research. Absent funding, biotech startups die. Her 25. Startup biotech firms depend heavily on federal grants. If funding becomes scarce, companies struggle to attract investment, leading to a slowdown in drug development and medical advancements. Without reliable funding, critical research efforts and lives are at risk. Pandemics risk extinction. Bomb 23 finds pandemics are larger now than earlier history because global travel and urban density create opportunities for pathogens. Historical evidence is consistent with the high probability of human extinction from pandemics. Pandemics disrupt labor pool, causing supply chain disruptions. Pandemic cause neurological harm, resulting in insufficient cognitive fitness to maintain civilization. Pandemic causes failure of geoengineering. Temperatures rapidly rise, resulting in a natural hazard. C2 is democracy. Democracy is crumbling. Boot 25. American democracy is in peril. Our civil liberties have been constrained. There's a climate of fear of deportations. People should be worried about descending into authoritarianism. EOs create polarization, threatening democracy. McGinnis ND. The president represents the middle of their party, not the middle of the nation. These rules seem extreme. Each set of partisan rulemaking angers members of the other party, making them more likely to take a more extreme path, making each side fear that the other will enjoy unchecked power. The imposition of extreme policies make them angry, further alienating them from their opponents. Furthermore, executive orders create a series of back and forth policies. Bergall 25. They fall through with a stack of orders at a steep price. EOs are easily reversed, causing a pendulum swing in policy sacrifices durability and legitimacy for speed. This erodes public trust. McKinsey 25. The back and forth policy sends a signal to the American public that we are divided. Over time, that has an eroding effect on public trust. And EOs undermine checks and balances. Goitein 23. Presidents exploit emergency powers to circumvent Congress to undermine democracy. Presidents claim constitutional powers to take extraordinary action during emergencies, underpin the worst abuses, including internment of Japanese Americans. Congress powerless to terminate an emergency declaration unless it can muster a veto-proof supermajority, which is near impossible. That consolidates power around one person. Holiday 22. EOs create a path around the need to defend ideas. Orders are decided by one person, and EOs are the root cause for congressional inaction. Hunt 25. Congress refrained from taking the wheel because it knows the president is willing to bear the burden. Congress is repeatedly content to cede its lawmaking powers to the executive. Independently, constantly changing EOs invites numerous lawsuits. Thompson 25. Union civil rights organizations and state attorney generals challenge executive actions before courts. We're in uncharted territory in terms of speed and scope. Every president has had people who disagree with policies. Presidents clog up the system. Wheel 25. Presidents, lawyers, and government officials know enough outlandish nonsense and unconstitutional orders that they can clog the courts. It's challenging to litigate each case in reasonable time. Courts are key for democracy. Jawando 15. No matter the issue, whether it's equality or immigration, federal courts play a vital role to decide disagreements that concern the Constitution. If caseloads get backlogged, access to justice is limited. Courts vital in preserving democracy. Democracy is an impact filter. Kasparov 17. Existential threat today is very real. Terrorists, extremists, North Korea, and Russia are thriving as the U.S. has retreated. American leadership begins at home. Americans are engaged. The spread of democracy is the only remedy for every crisis. War, famine, poverty, terrorism are generated by authoritarian regimes. Absent democracy, Minority 20 finds world and chain scenario where totalitarian governments use tech to lock the world into perpetual suffering, vastly exceeding all that's existed so far, worse than extinction. For these reasons, we urge a neg ballot.
Let me send out the Google Doc. It should be on like permissions for everybody to view, but I don't know if I messed up. Okay, I sent it.
But we'll let you know when we get it. Think I got it. Let me make sure. Yeah, I got it.
Okay. This isn't like, it's not like a speech doc per se. There's like rhetoric that's different. So do you want the rhetoric as well, or just the cards?
If you could send the rhetoric or like just add it in the doc. I think I just like copy paste in the doc, that'd be good.
Okay, yeah, I'll just copy and paste it. The rhetoric is here.
Okay.
Okay, are you guys good for me to start then?
Mm.
Okay. Leadership thrives in action, and executive orders ensure it. Rooted in Article 2 of the Constitution, criminal law expert Madel in February finds that executive orders are among the president's most powerful tools used to govern effectively when the other branches reach an impasse. The framers understand the authority would be essential for resolving gridlock between Congress and the courts. And while no system is perfect, executive orders are far from unchecked. As legal scholar Jackson of Vanderbilt in 2025 explains that multiple safeguards ensure their legality, including internal review by the DOJ, judicial oversight, and legislative pushback. These mechanisms may not catch everything, but they help preserve the balance of power and limit executive overreach. And that oversight works, as the ACLU in 2025 highlights judicial challenges that successfully curtailed Trump's revocation of Muslim ban and Biden's asylum prevention for exceeding executive authority. More broadly, a 64-year study by Rogoski of U Chicago in 2023 finds that executive orders generally align with public opinion, serving as a clear reflection of democratic will rather than a threat to it. Far from undermining democracy, executive orders protect it when other avenues fail. Thus, San Marino LT proudly affirms. First, let's look at how to weigh this debate. We think that saying we should prioritize preventing extinction or perpetual suffering, which are considered high magnitude issues, even if there's a 0.0001% chance is bad, because it's not representative. This framing is bad because it's not representative of real life policymaking and advocacy skills. This is the most important kind of education and debate because it changes our lives and gives us skills for future endeavors. When there's a 90% chance of a hurricane, the U.S. is passing Hurricane A, not increasing investment in space weapons because of a 0.00001% chance of space wars. Now, on to case. Our sole argument concerns practical and powerful solutions. Congress is paralyzed by political polarization. PhD in political philosophy Leva May finds that growing ideological divides have turned legislatures into arenas of conflict. Professor Hunt of Brown in 2024 confirms that today's Congress is the least productive in American history, passing just 34 bills into law. Worse, minority lawmakers would rather block productive solutions and let their political opponents win, letting things get worse so they can campaign on the problem. Even when legislation does pass, it's often weakened. Parvin of UC Berkeley in 2022 explains that the influence of special interests waters down proposals, replacing bold action with generic half measures. And in moments of crisis, that can be catastrophic. Yale professor Glass in 2016 finds that Hurricane Katrina was magnified by Congress's inaction. Its slow and uncoordinated response left 80% of New Orleans underwater with lawmakers unwilling to forgive emergency disaster loans. And for these reasons, public trust in Congress is collapsing, as a Pew Research Center found that just 36% of Americans believe Congress acts in the interests of ordinary people. But because it's hard to assign blame to any one person, voters rarely hold them accountable. As data analyst Miller in 2022 finds that 90% of congressional incumbents win re-election, even as they fail to represent the public. It is clear that executive orders are essential, as federal prosecutor Bennett in April explains that they allow presidents to swiftly direct federal agencies using existing legal authority and resources rather than create new laws. They prioritize enforcement and mobilization, providing more targeted responses when urgency demands it. These orders uniquely amplify the effectiveness of the government by magnifying existing policies. Howell too finds that presidents have constructed over 240 governmental agencies through EOs, from the Peace Corps to the EPA, which is solving climate change right now, and FEMA. Crucially, Lathrop GPM in 2025 writes that orders also direct government agencies on the best ways to implement congressional policies, including specific regulations or enforcement measures. Indeed, EOs make laws more efficient, as Glitterman 17 explains that unitary executive action allows the president to lead the nation's bureaucracy effectively, impacting the lives of millions. That's why an 86-year analysis by Professor of Political Science Rockman in 2021 finds that executive orders have consistently bridged legislative gaps in times of national crisis. These orders are not impulsive. Rather, they are developed with input from advisors, reviewed by legal counsel, and are grounded in historical precedent. In times of crisis, America needs decisive leadership. That means executive orders. Affirm. I'm open for cross. You can take the first question.
All right, perfect. Time's gonna start now. Let's talk about public trust. So you tell me that public trust is collapsing right now, right?
For Congress.
Okay. So if we can prove that the reason public trust is, well, okay, yeah, and then the reason public trust is in Congress is collapsing is because of gridlock, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we can win that the root cause of that gridlock is due to the executive order and the existence of the executive order, then are we winning the clash on public trust?
No, because we can still win that executive orders make it a try or die situation for executive power to solve emergencies or even for any of the impacts you talk about. Could I get a question?
Yeah.
Okay, so when one contention you talk about how pandemics is going to cause extinction, and the other is about how democracy will cause perpetual suffering. So in the event that hypothetically your contentions are true, um, is democracy going to cause is our pandemics going to wipe out the human population before democracy cause perpetual suffering? Or when are these going to happen?
Yeah,
Like
so
which
the
one happens first?
yeah, sure. So the first piece of evidence we read says that this life-threatening
Mhm.
pandemic is going to happen by 2028. So we would say it's that one, right? Because we only have a couple years left, especially due to the executive order, right? But then on our second
Mhm.
argument, we say that democracy is already crumbling now, and the reason is because of the
Mhm.
executive order, right? So if we can win that, so what we'll tell you is that this debate should be framed on whether the executive order is on net better or worse in terms of saving lives, right? That's pretty
Or
fair.
executive orders, plural, right? And then also
Yeah,
weighing the benefits and harms
the
of each
executive
one.
order. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Just a quick follow-up. So if you're talking about like perpetual suffering, when is that going to happen? Like how much democracy decline needs to happen for perpetual suffering?
yeah, that's what I was getting to, right? So the minority
Okay, yeah.
evidence finds that once the world reaches absolute zero in terms of democracy, will reach the impact. We say that the executive order is responsible for undermining global democracy, especially within
Mhm.
America, though. And so our argument on this is if we can win, that the executive order has pushed us closer to this brink where democracy is like really bad, then we should win the round. But can I get another
Okay,
question?
just one quick question. It'll take like 10 seconds.
Taking like
So,
three here, and we have 10 seconds left.
okay, you can go ahead and take one.
All right, thank you. We have five anyways. Okay, well, we can just call it there.
Okay.
Okay, I'm good to start rebuttal unless Ranesh, you want to take prep time?
No, I'm good too.
Okay. The order of the speech will be quickly on the weighing debate, and then it will go down their case. Is everyone ready? At the top, they tell you to prefer probable arguments. They have not given a reason for why our arguments are not probable or why extinction is not probable. We would argue, absent democracy, things like wars break out. Obviously, you do not want to be living under an authoritarian regime, and they've conceded why pandemics do cause extinction. But even if you as a judge do not buy extinction impacts and want to look to probability, you are still winning the round because we have contextualized why our impacts are happening, how the executive orders in the status quo are causing the harms that we talk about, and how pandemics will still kill millions of lives without proper response, and democracy causes wars, terrorism, and worsen civil rights abuses. But even then, they say prefer probability because of fairness and education. We would argue you as a judge have an intrinsic obligation to prefer for whether or not there have been more benefits or harms. If we prove that we are saving more people, or if we prove the neg is harming more people, if we prove that executive orders are harming more people than saving, then you should vote for us. But then, on their case, at the top, they say Congress is gridlocked. But they have not told you why Congress is polarized and gridlocked. Our Hunt evidence finds that the root cause is executive orders because it makes it so that Congress feels like they don't need to pass policies because because the president will do it for them, which is why historically the Bill of Rights evidence finds that during the Lyndon B. Johnson presidency, he pushed a legislative agenda and did not rely on executive orders, which is why we saw Congress pass over 200 laws, such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964 forbidding racial discrimination and the Food Stamp Act that established the federal food stamp. Why do you weigh this? Why do you weigh this over their case? Because if executive orders are the reason for congressional gridlock, then we would, without executive orders, you would see all their arguments being solved anyways. But then, specifically on their arguments, one, Chem 21 finds emergency powers are usually used to benefit governments rather than save lives. By studies of disasters found the more power given to the executive, the higher the body count. But then, secondly, EOs create economic uncertainty. Industry leaders because the Stratford at 25 finds that when administrations change, executive orders are often reversed or changed, which makes it hard for businesses to adapt to regulations. Obviously, if the economy is bad, that means it makes it harder for emergency response to happen because the government is then getting less money. But then, insofar as businesses lost $1.7 trillion in imposition costs. But then, specifically on their argument about solving structural issues. One, they tell you organizations like FEMA are being made by executive orders, but they don't tell you executive orders are the ones that remove these disaster relief organizations. As the Guardian finds, that during 2025, that Trump phased out organizations like FEMA, which is for disaster relief. Executive orders are causing the very harms that they try to talk about. And two, look to like COVID-19. Why did we see millions of lives lost? Why did we not see proper response? If executive orders was this incredible solution that they talk about, we should not have seen the harms exist in the status quo. Even then, you see executive orders cause social injustice harms, such as the Japanese internment camps. During Eisenhower, he caused he caused gender discrimination for work laws, and he saw other like issues with these things. But then, even then, we would argue executive orders erode trust in democracy. They tell you there's checks and balances, but no, there's not. The new Supreme Court ruling has made it almost impossible for courts to check back, and over 2 of 1,000 cases have ever been reversed by Congress. That's why you see unilateral action being happened, and Trump decides who's in these federal courts, so it does not matter. Even then, public trust is decreasing because of executive orders. As Reeves finds, only 26% believe the president should make policy without Congress, and public is suspicious of unilateral actions. And the reason is because it's always partisan policy making. There's no incentive for the president to negotiate, which isolates half the world, causing increased polarization, which only exacerbates the very harms they talk about. At that point, history is on our side. Voting on probability, you're voting for us, and magnitude is on our side, you're voting for us. At the end of the day, it's a clean neg ballot.
Could I call for a quick card? I believe you like in the other round that we did, I think you sent it already, but I forgot it. I forgot where it is. It's like the Kemp 21 card with like the death toll thing,
Yeah, I can send
I
it.
think. Or is that the one or also the one that says emergency powers benefit the government then save
It's the
lives?
same
That's the
card.
same card, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I just sent it. Wait, I sent it the wrong one. Sorry, wrong email chain. Uh, sorry about that. It's like my email's super confusing. Hopefully this is the right one.
And then we'll start prep when we get it.
I think I just got it. Okay, I can start prep and open it.
Okay, we'll start prep.
Time starts now. All right, 30 seconds. So order will be a little weird. I'll make it clear. First is going to be neg case. No, first is going to be AF case. Second is going to be neg case. Last is going to be framing. Framing is going to be last. Okay?
Wait, no, framing in the middle.
Oh, my bad. Framing in the middle. So framing after I cover case. Okay. Everyone good? Let's run off case because it's very, very wishy-washy. First, they tell you that saving lives are important, therefore Congress thinks that they don't have to pass laws directly as a result of executive orders. That's absolutely not true. Look towards every single instance of executive orders actively prompting the change that's happening in Congress. First, Obama gave an executive order to fight gender discrimination and let that signal to the rest of the world and public and Congress to directly increase specific legislation in regards to gender discrimination and stopping that system. You turn the argument against them because we're the ones that are actively pushing Congress to do better. But second of all, understand the higher number of death tolls with executive orders, that entire card makes no sense. First of all, it's only addressing a singular time period within COVID, but second of all, they give zero warranting as to why that's the case. But number three, when they're talking about how it's harder for businesses to respond, we have two responses. Number one, 74% of EOs are never revoked or changed, which means that in the best case scenario, the majority of EOs aren't actively affecting businesses. But second of all, DOS 13 explains that the average EO length is 12 years, which means that in the best case scenario, you're still seeing that change being adopted. But then they tell you that EOs remove disaster relief in organizations. They give you one example of Trump trying to remove FEMA. Ignore that example because FEMA still exists and is currently working and saving $1.5 billion in the recent hurricane. But second of all, you prefer our examples because we give you 240 plus other governmental agencies created directly as a result through EOs. But second of all, when they tell you about Supreme Court cases causing injunction, it's very, very wishy-washy because it doesn't matter. It's not stopping injunctions, it's stopping universal injunctions. What does this mean? This means that so many different bans still occur without that injunction stopping. Trump's travel ban, Trump's refugee ban, Trump's EO for federal funding cuts, etc. All of these were stopped without that system needed. But then they tell you that 26% of presidents, 26 believe presidents should make policies without Congress. That's the keyword, without Congress. We have legislative review, which means that Congress is still involved. But then let's talk about framing. First of all, they make a huge mistake on the weighing debate. Extend that the probability is key because the biggest impact is education by advocacy skill. That's the biggest impact on framing because that's what exactly improves your skill. And that's conceded, which means that they concede the probability is better. They say that impacts are probable No, they're not. Vaccines solve pandemics and centuries of democracy thrums. The problem is that they never give the words magnitude is better than probability. They only give you even the statements they prefer our framing. But then, even if you have the obligation to prefer the bigger benefit or harm, you have zero analysis on why magnitude gives you that. Extend the analysis. We tell you that the bigger harm when there's a 90% chance of a hurricane and a 0.0001% chance of space war. But then let's go on to Ned case. First on pandemics, understand you can turn the argument against them because EOs have been super important in addressing pandemics. During COVID, Federal Register 20 states that EOs prioritized COVID and saved 20 million lives. Second of all, understand it's always better than doing nothing with congressional gridlock, so you always prefer our side at the end of the day. But then, number 3, understand that EOs are reversible, so a bad EO of Trump leaving the WHO can easily be reversed in the single sleight of a hand. But then, number 4, EOs are on both sides that have helped healthcare, and that's specifically to Trump as well, which cut drug prices by 75% recently. But then, when they talk about Doge investment, it's also very wishy-washy when their very own Kaiser 25 card tells you about NIH funding being cut isn't even talking about EOs, it's talking about a congressional policy, so it makes no sense. But then on their contention too of democracy, extend the refutation I gave about Obama, but second of all, understand that 50 years of data proves that they're wrong because the public opinions control EOs, not the president. But second of all, you can also extend our 86 years analysis card given in case, which tells you that overall, in times of national emergency or any other system entirely, EOs always do better than Congress. But then, even more importantly, you still prefer us because objectively safeguards exist and are working. AP News reported 2 weeks ago that 91 of Trump's EOs were stopped. So in the worst case scenario, you're still seeing these working. But then understand that autocracy has been here for 300 plus years, but there's zero authoritarian being passed. So their understanding of authoritarian government is still very limited. For all of these reasons, it is because you prefer the better outcome and the better legislation that you always affirm. I'm open for cross.
Before that, Vijay, do you want to take prep real quick?
Yeah. Can you call me, Ranesh?
Yeah. All right, we'll cut it there at a minute. Yeah, you guys can start cross now.
I'm going to start cross.
Okay, you're gonna have the first question.
Yeah. Let me get my stopwatch ready. Time will begin now. You say that on the pandemics argument, you say that Congress can, sorry, you say that presidents can reverse policies, but then on your case, you say 75% of policies do not get reversed. So do policies get reversed or do they not get reversed? Which one is it?
Wait, 74% of policies are not reversed, which means that the rest of them are. I'm not sure what you're not understanding because
Wait, but like, so that means based on your framing on probability, it is likely that the WHO and the Doge cuts do not get reversed. But you can take a question.
No, that's not true. The difference here is that policies are reversed based on how they are following regulation. Donald Trump's EOs are majority not following regulations. That's why 91 of those EOs are currently already being challenged throughout the courts and succeeding. But then I can have a question. Let's go back to your contention one of pandemics. In your very own card, it says that roughly 6 years, there is a pandemic. Humanity's existed for over 1 million years. Divide that by 6 and there's hundreds of thousands of chances for extinction. Why have we never seen it?
Okay, there's a couple reasons. One, the executive orders that we talk about were just passed in 2025. So obviously, before that, you wouldn't have seen extinction because we had the necessary protocols. But then two, the bomb evidence finds that the chance of probability has only increased. The probability of extinction has only increased because populations are getting larger, which makes spread easier. But can I get a
Can
question?
I get a follow-up real quick?
Of course.
I want to talk about how you're like specifically saying the brink is now because we've just passed the EO. Does that mean that the brink disappears at the point which that EO is reversed?
Well, there's no you read no evidence that it's going to be reversed. So you should probably, if you're going on your own probability
You
framing, then
just said that the EO is really bad and the people are against it, didn't you?
that doesn't mean it's going to get reversed. Like
Okay.
if
So
a
are you saying
Republican
that
candidate wins presidency again, then they'll likely keep the Trump policy. You need to make
okay,
the implication that A, somehow you have a guaranteed there's a high probability that A, Democrats win, that B, that this Democrat is going to reverse the policy, and C, it will solve in time. But can
okay,
I have a question?
yeah, go ahead.
Let's talk about your argument about like aid, right? How like it's good for emergencies. Um,
Female.
like generally you said executive orders are good for like emergencies and like civil rights,
Okay, yeah.
right? Can you okay, wait. If we say there's executive orders that are bad for civil rights, and then you say there's executive orders good for civil rights and aid, how does the judge supposed to break the clash?
Yeah, great question. The difference here is that there is a very specific court difference in which people favor civil rights EOs that are better for people, i.e., there is EOs that are against civil rights, like the Japanese internment, which will never pass today. And there's EOs that are good for civil rights, like gender discrimination, that I've named with Obama, that also, most significantly, allow for Congress to increase the amount of legislation for gender discrimination.
But if there have been EOs that have been passed that cause the very same harms you talk about, doesn't that mean on balance, like
Time's
EOs?
up, but I can answer the question. Yeah, there is no on balance at the point to which courts majority favor EOs that are increasing civil rights. At that point, you're never going to see a majority of EOs being struck down by courts that says civil rights are good because that's just not the way of the world. But in back then, when there's Japanese internment, that was, and that's where you're getting the examples.
Um, Ranesh, you want to take prep? I think we have 2 minutes left.
Yeah, I will, but before that, can I see the evidence you read from rebuttal that says public opinion controls executive orders?
Oh, yeah, sure. The 64-year analysis, I think I have a few.
Okay, sure, yeah.
64-year analysis is in case, and then I can send another one if you want.
Yeah, wait, just so that I don't have to like look through all your evidence, could you just send like whatever evidence you were specifically citing about public opinion controlling executive orders?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Like, can you email it?
hmm
All right, thank you.
Wait, but before that, I think you already have the card. It was in case, but I'm sending another one, but I'm pretty sure you already do have the card.
Yeah, wait, what's the card name in that case? I'll just try and find it.
It's like, let me find it. I can send you another one too. This one is Christian 19.
Was
Okay.
that one in case?
No, but
Okay.
I'm gonna name you the one in case right now. Rogwitsky of U Chicago in 2023.
Okay, wait, how do I spell that the first name?
Rogowski.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I see it. 64-year study. All right. Um, I'm gonna start prep time as soon as Vijay you pick up. All right, cut it there at a minute 32. So we have a minute 30 left. Or no, sorry, we have 30 seconds or 28 seconds left because I forgot about the first minute we used. 28 seconds left. Off time roadmap, it's gonna start on our case, which is the neg, or it'll start on like framing how like the lens under which you should be evaluating the round, move to our case, and then it'll end off refuting their case. And time starts on my first word. On framing, it's really clean here. So they say prefer probability, and we'll agree that you should prefer it at the number one since we're definitely winning it. A, our court clog argument on contention 2 is cold conceded, which means for the sake of this round, you know for a fact that it has a 100% probability. B, you're seeing the impacts of democracy right now, whether it's Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, and our scholars find that democracy is crucial to social rights, access to care, aid, etc. So if you want to vote on their case, our impacts are the most likely in it as like a Lincoln. Then again, that evidence is also dropped, so you flow through. But two, even if you believe that they have a 100% probability as well, then you default to magnitude, which they have agreed we're winning on because we're the only team that links to extinction, which is the highest amount of death in the round. At that point, let's talk about court clock specifically. Because people will always disagree with policies, when executive orders are passed, people sue in federal courts. Disastrously, Wheel 25 finds presidents purposefully pass extra useless executive orders to clog up the courts and prevent their specific undemocratic executive orders from being challenged. Critically, courts are key for preserving democracy by allowing people to access justice, and when courts are clogged, access to justice is limited, which hurts democracy. And then on democracy as a whole, they give you a couple responses, but they all really don't apply. Specifically, they say public opinion controls the executive order. Again, obviously it doesn't. If the president, a single person, is deciding which policy passes, there's not like the rest of the hundreds of millions of people in America who are telling him what to do, right? I mean, yeah. And then second, they say that in national emergencies, executive orders are good. We'll get to that more on their case, but we'll say that we'll just make an argument for now that Congress is better as a decision maker since there's more people making these decisions, right? 435 specifically. And then they tell you the next thing they tell you is 91 executive orders have already been stopped. Yeah, 91 out of hundreds. That's why we're seeing the most abusive executive orders just travel right underneath America's nose because we don't have the court like capacity to actually evaluate every single executive order per our evidence. Then they tell you autocracy has already been it's been a thing for hundreds of years. Yes, but we say that executive orders uniquely have pushed us closer to the brink where democracy it has pushed us closer to the brink where democracy causes like world-ending conflict, or even not world-ending conflict, but just conflict in general, which is why historically, I mean, as of recent, we've seen the most conflict. Then, on their case, one, the root cause of gridlock per the Hunt 25 card is because Congress has gone complacent in decision making and doesn't feel like they need to negotiate since they believe that the president will just do it for them, right? If they know that it's an urgent executive order, they're not going to care because they know that if it's urgent, again, the president will just pass it anyways. Cold conceded. Two, they also say Obama passed one executive order that made Congress take actions, but prefer our Lyndon B. Johnson empiric because it's an analysis of a whole presidency as opposed to one policy, and it finds that on net, Congress, whenever executive orders go down, Congress decision making goes up. Then presidential action is a partisan policy, which is why the McGinnis evidence finds it angers half of America. And then on civil rights, executive orders like Japanese internment camps have been a thing, which you know for a fact that on net executive order is bad for civil rights. Then on aid, they've conceded that crisis like COVID disasters, etc., have all been mishandled by executive orders. It's a clean ballot for the NAG.
Okay, we'll take running prep. Wait, are you guys okay with flex prep?
Sure, yeah. We don't have a problem with it.
For flex prep, are you taking time for our answers as well?
Yeah.
Because some people do
Yeah.
adjust their questions, so
Oh, actually, that's crazy.
yeah.
Okay. We use 30 seconds, I believe. Okay, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna run it right now. Okay, so wait, hold on.
Wait, is prep running? Or
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. What was the last response? You said like we mishandled
Oh,
pandemics,
it was just like
whatever.
during COVID, the US had like a really bad response and like other disasters as well.
Okay,
Doors don't work.
got it. Okay, and then did you went for both your contentions, right?
We
No.
went for
Court
democracy.
clog. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Okay, what was the last argument you said on weighing after the democracy happening now?
Yeah, so I mean, first we talked about probability. After that, we said default to magnitude if probability is a
Okay.
wash, which means that we win the round since both sides have agreed that the neg wins on magnitude.
Okay. Okay. And then that was the last response on weighing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. I'm gonna mute. I'll prep a little bit with Okay. 215. Oh shoot. Okay. Maybe you shouldn't use flex prep next time. Okay. So I think I'll go uh framing first or weighing mechanisms. Um our case, their case, and then maybe a little more weighing. Um yeah, I think I'll do that. Okay. Are you guys good? Okay, got it. Don't let one bad apple ruin decades of benefits and the millions of lives that executive orders have already saved. The most important part of this debate is how to actually weigh it. Now, first, let's look at our interpretation where we tell you that you should prioritize probability because it is key for advocacy skills, and that's the only thing that matters because those are the skills that you're taking out of debate. We have 100% probability because we use past events, and conceding these past empirics are absolutely lethal to their case. Next, they talk about how we conceded their court call argument. We definitely didn't, and there's not even an impact. They don't extend a terminal impact here. So if they even want to go to magnitude, they can't even access that. Then they say democracy is happening now. There's no terminal impact. Again, they could have said a few words, but they didn't extend a terminal impact to how many lives are implemented or how many lives are like how much perpetual suffering or anything. And then they say that we should default to magnitude if probability is a wash. No, you default to time frame because we can solve issues first with time frame and then solve their bigger magnitude or bigger magnitude issues later. Again, they have not said the words magnitude is better than probability or magnitude is better than time frame in the entirety of the debate, where I tell you time and time again that probability is the most important thing and next is time frame. Now let's go on the affirmative case. They say that Congress isn't gridlocked because they rely on EOs to do the work. No. Remember our Obama empiric, which they completely mishandle and don't even and refuse to interact with or analyze, where we tell you that Obama passed anti-discrimination laws as an executive order, and Congress actually put that into place and continued with its national priority. Then they say whenever EOs go down, Congress goes up. That doesn't have anything to do with polarization. That just means that if Congress does manage to pass more policies, maybe EOs don't have to solve for those issues. Then they talk about how 91 EOs is a little out of a lot more EOs, but this is the issue. The difference is those 91 EOs are the bad EOs. We don't overturn the good ones like EPA and FEMA. It just so happens that Trump's 91 EOs are the ones that are bad, and Trump is passing a lot of bad EOs according to the courts in Congress. But next, let's look at the next side. There's a little bit of confusion on the link debate to EOs, but let me clarify for you. Their first card is from 2023, and it says there will be a pandemic in 2028, but it's not because of Trump's EOs, because Trump's Dojios happened in 2025. So either A, it's true that vaccines solve, or B, it will happen anyway. Their first card doesn't even tell you that there's a clear link to EOs. Then they talk about how during COVID, US had a bad response. No, they dropped a key thing here. Biden did an executive order that distributed vaccines and this saved 20 million lives. And this was a turn read by my partner. They can't just drop it. Pandemics is an advantage for us now. Next, go to democracy. They say that one person isn't controlled by public opinion, but they drop the warrant on campaign promises that we explained to you. That when presidents make campaign promises, they are inclined to follow through because otherwise they will face legislative pushback and also public opinion backlash. You prefer this 50 years of data study over high school warrants. Then they say EOs push us closer to the brink of authoritarianism. They don't tell us that brink or the probability of that. Centuries thump, which goes dropped. When you have our impact saving millions of people through climate change, foreign aid, etc., in the past and right now, and you know that probability is the best metric on how to weigh this debate, you're voting for the affirmative.
Are we good
All
to
right.
start, Ross?
All right. Vijay, is it cool if
Yeah.
I take first question?
Of course.
All right, okay. Time's gonna start now. Okay, so let's talk about extinction. Is extinction a terminal impact?
Yeah.
Okay. And if extinction
But
was brought up in summary, then does that not mean that we extended a terminal impact?
if you said that cord clog causes extinction, and you put the warrants in, then I'd say that counts as an extension. But
Okay, cool. All right, you can have a
so,
question.
but I also think that that is not a path to the ballot, given the probability and magnitude timeframe debate that's going on.
Wait,
If,
oh yeah,
you know,
actually, can I get a quick follow-up?
yeah.
In summary, did you extend any warrant as to why extinction is not probable?
Yes.
What was it?
We extended like vaccine solve and also centuries of democracy thumps. Also, you don't give us like a brink. And then we say that 100% probability with like the empirics that we gave about like vaccines saving 20 million lives or like saving lives from foreign aid across the world, and then also like the EPA with climate change. Like those have 100%, or maybe not the EPA with climate change, but like the impacts that have happened have 100% probability. So if we're weighing on probability as a metric, then we should just like, like unless you guys somehow win 100% probability,
this is all
kudos
like
to you, then you guys can.
responses. This is all responses, right? Not like a reason why extinction in and of itself is a bad impact on the probability scale, right?
What extinction is a bad impact because I've extended that probability is more aligned to real life policy making. And then also that like that's the only thing you take away from debate. So if you're going to weigh like a 90% chance of a hurricane against a 0.001% of like space wars causing extinction, then like that's just like a reason why you prefer probability. Like I'm not saying that yours is 0.001%. I'm just using that as a hypothetical. Could I get a question though?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so the pandemic stuff, I'm like a little confused. Like how does the Dojo gonna cause pandemics? The pandemic in 2028.
The
We're
arguments
not
that
going for
causes
pandemics
pandemics,
anyways.
but like,
So
Wait, so
we won't go for
you're not
pandemic.
collapsing on okay.
yeah,
Yeah, and we're also not
Okay, so
weighing
it's
it.
so
So
it's
it doesn't
nothing.
matter. Yeah.
Okay, so it's okay. Can I get a different question then?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Um, so you talk about how like EOs push us closer to the brink. The brink, just to make sure, brink is conversion to autocracy on the United States, or what is the brink? Is the brink like all the global autocracy?
yeah. So it's over time. But can I answer?
Yeah.
Judges? Okay. One, the argument that any decrease in democracy is bad because like the link arguments that Ranesh made about how like it causes conflict, but two, the brink that Ranesh talks about is it's autocracy, right? The US people lose their rights, things like that.
Yeah, so
Okay, got
extinction
it.
is based on a brink, and then the rest is scalar. But yeah, that's time. We have
Okay, got
28
it. Yeah, got
seconds.
it.
Yeah. Okay. We have 28 seconds of prep remaining. I'm gonna call you now, Vijay. All right, that's time.
Okay, order of the speech will go starting on our case, then it will go to the weighing debate, and then it'll go to their case. Is everyone ready? There is no response ever extended on court clock in their rebuttal or summary. The only thing they say on courts in general is that courts have struck down 91 policies, but that concedes our arguments as courts are dealing more with executive orders and are spending less time with the individual American cases in federal courts. Do not let them come up here and make brand new responses and final focus. It's unfair because we don't have a chance to respond to it. Extend the argument. Because people will always disagree with policies, when executive orders are passed, people sue in federal courts. Disastrously, the White House 25 evidence, which is not interacted with once, finds that presidents purposely pass extra use of executive orders to clog up their courts and prevent their specific undemocratic executive orders from being challenged. Critically, courts are key for democracy by allowing people to access justice in their immigration cases, in their healthcare cases, in their civil rights cases, and when their courts are clogged, access to justice is limited, which hurts democracy. All they say is our impacts are not materializing right now. The one they've conceded, you are seeing our impacts. Things like decreases in democracy have caused Russia-Ukraine war, Israel-Palestine. Our scholars find that courts and democracy are key to social rights and access aid. That means that because people can't access courts, they cannot get aid. They can't fight for, because when their aid gets rejected, they cannot fight for civil rights. They don't have a voice in the government. At that point, it's a prerequisite to their case. The link in goes straight conceded. Do not vote on it. Our arguments are 100% probable as they've conceded our argument, which means if you are buying the probability debate, you're voting for us. But then, it's conceded that social rights do go away because when there's any decrease in democratic decline, there's decreases in social rights that's conceded. Also, democracy does cause extinction, so if you don't buy probability, you can break the clash on extinction weighing on their turn. On pandemics, it's not weighed. On their case, all their arguments about congressional gridlock is that it's conceded because the 125 evidence finds the root cause for gridlock is because of executive orders making that so people don't want to pass Congress doesn't feel like they need to pass policies. All they cite is the Obama empiric, but prefer the Lyndon B. Johnson empiric, which analyzes a whole presidency as opposed to just a couple executive orders, which means you're always voting on congressional gridlock. Also, they have conceded that polarization increases because president action or partisan policies. At that point, it's a clear vote for the neg.
All right, I think I have 25 seconds left, so I'll just take it and I'll tell you when I'm.
Real quick, it was 30 seconds used and then 2:15 before summary.
Oh, my bad. I thought, sorry. Okay, 15 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Stop.
All right,
Okay.
cool. Sounds.
Time starts now. All right, time is up. Order will be our case, actually no, dropped arguments, and then drop arguments, framework, weigh. Okay? Okay. This is the easiest ballot you will have all day because of 4 things. Number 1, they dropped the 86-year study that tells you over the course of 86 years, national emergencies in any other system has been better solved through EOs. That chart singularly wipes out their understanding of worsening democracy. But second of all, 64-year study also just as important because also every single EO generally confirms you public opinion. They've never responded to it. They've never brought it up. Why is this so important? Because in the worst case scenario, you are not decreasing democracy when EOs are generally aligning with public opinion. Instead, turn the argument against them because Congress is the one that's not aligning with public opinion with the 26% approval rating. But then look towards Obama empiric. They tell you the Obama empiric doesn't work because it considers one single example. The difference here is that they have not responded to it in the summary and they've not responded to it in any other speech aside from the final focus. But second of all, when they're telling you about how there's certain specific systems in Lyndon B. Johnson's administration, you prefer us because we're a more recent example, but also because we've seen specific legislation, including non-discrimination law, being passed as a result. And lastly, the 50-year study directly proving that in terms of public opinion, it controls EOs across history. For all of these studies, you immediately prefer our case. But then let's go on to framework. First of all, they make a mistake which they concede that probability is the most important and time frame is the next important because probability is better for developing real-world policy and advocacy. They can see we have an 100% probability with our empirics and millions of people are being saved. But then we concede what we default time frame. We have 0 time frame on course work clause, our impacts have already happened. But lastly, why is this so important? Number one, look towards our contention, which we directly tell you FEMA, EPA, 240 plus more governmental agencies. It's a very easy comparison. But second of all, do not buy their extinction impact at the point to which they've never responded to this probability comparison. But number three, you can also turn their pandemics argument against them at the point to which they drop the turn. So even then, you still prefer our case. Lastly, 20 million lives saved during COVID that was extended by Sarah and never responded to. So for all of these reasons, you see that we win on even on magnitude, but still on the framework of probability, we win because of all of these studies they dropped and every single piece of legislation that has been successfully passed. You affirm every single time.
Good round.
Good round.
Good round.
Good round.